Welcome to R&R Showtime with Robert
And Ryan,
and
this is a special episode.
Our top 10 Batman rankings, top 10 Batman movies,
Releasing in
not animated ones, except for one.
Releasing in conjunction with our review of The Batman. If you have seen that movie, go ahead and give it a watch. If you haven't seen it, we try to avoid spoilers for the most part, but we do get into them. So maybe listen to up until the part where we do give the spoiler warning, or just go see the movie. You're gonna kind of get our thoughts on it in this list because it's going to be ranked. But yeah.
Let's just hop right into it with what we both will probably make our...
Well, let's talk about our honorable mention first.
Okay,
because you wanted to touch on a movie that neither of us have seen.
Okay,
so
fine.
It was unfair to try and rank it.
I guess so. Yeah.
But you wanted to comment on the Batman movie.
It's not the Batman movie. It's Batman the movie.
Okay, yeah.
We got to be real specific here because they get real close to the same movie. Batman the movie with
starring
Adam West.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Neither of us have seen it. I haven't seen any of the classic show either. I've just seen clips of it, so I have like concepts of it, and it's a very goofy style, which I think I'd probably enjoy. And I've seen clips of the movie that I thought was pretty funny. It's like this sort of intentional camp, which I can appreciate, but it also doesn't gravitate me to want to watch it.
Yeah. I have to say, what of all the clips I've seen of it, which I've seen many like 5-minute clips and stuff, like whole scenes and things. And I could tell that there's something to be appreciated about that movie, but I also would probably fucking hate it. And that's why if I had to give it a rating, it's going to be the lowest that I can imagine. But it's not to say that's a subjective thing. This list just going forward is going to be very subjective.
Very much so.
It's not these are objectively the best movies of Batman, because I know that, where I'm going to rank things could be some of the not good Batmans put in different places. So.
Yeah. And I haven't seen like the vast majority of all the animated Batman movies that are out there. I've seen one and it's on my list. But yeah, so let's get into it. Our number 10, I think we're going to have the same number 10.
We have the same number 10.
And it is a movie that some may argue is not a Batman movie. You, in fact, argued it was not a Batman movie.
Until you made one very good point about it.
And that is Batman v Superman. So the argument is to be made like maybe it's a Superman movie because it's a sequel to it's a follow-up to Man of Steel.
Or maybe it's less than both of them because it's also a setup for Justice League movie.
Yeah, it's like a pre-Justice League movie. But my arguments for why it is a Batman movie are he's the first name on the title. He wins the titular fight. He lives to the end of the movie. But most importantly, he is sort of like the protagonist. He's the one with agency trying to do stuff in this movie. Superman's kind of just a plot device for the most part. Like he had a movie for you to identify with him. I did not see that movie. So going into Batman v Superman, nothing about that movie made me identify with Superman as a person.
Yeah. It's quite simply, Superman does not have agency. He exists, and the story moves him. Anytime he has to do something, it's because somebody else did something first.
He's only fighting Batman because Lex Luthor made him.
Yeah. But Batman wants to fight him and does things and moves the story along that he's trying to do.
Talking about the movie itself, though, it's the worst Batman movie. It's a bad movie. It's probably the worst DC movie I've ever seen. I dislike it more than the regular Justice League.
And it's a travesty that it's such a bad movie because it's not only a combination of a titular comic event, Batman versus Superman, but also they just cram in another titular comic event, the death of Superman. And
also cram in the Justice League.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, the Justice League's coming, guys. DC was just rushing to try and
catch up with Marvel,
and they were like, well, let's just do none of these things that we're using Justice. Let's not set up the Justice League very well, and let's not do Death of Superman very well, and let's not do Batman versus Superman very well. Let's try and shove it all in, and maybe everybody will like it, and we'll get our fucking schedule moving.
There's all the weird dream sequences that that Batman has throughout the movie. There's the Flash coming through from the future that feels like so forced. Caveat, neither of us have seen the extended Ultimate Edition director's cut of the movie, which I've heard improves it. So maybe if you're gonna want to watch it, try watching that version, and maybe you'll be like, oh, I don't get what they are saying. Like, this movie is pretty good. But yeah, it's not a good movie. One thing I do want to defend about this movie, and I've been wanting to criticize this moment. I don't think the Save Martha moment is bad. I don't think it's as ridiculous and like as funny as people make it out to be, because Batman as a character, if there was going to be one thing to sort of break him out of his rage, it is the name of his mother, because that is sort of like a foundational like crux. Like he kind of is probably always having his parents on his mind. And it's not just that he's thinking of his mother and his mother has his name. It is the chance to humanize Superman in this moment as a child, because Lois Lane quickly comes in and says it's Superman's mother. And because the whole time Batman has his perspective of Superman. We have this perspective of Superman as a good guy because we know he's a good guy. Batman has no reason to really believe that, and he has more reason to believe that this dude is dangerous. And it's not until this moment that he has that connection. So I want to defend that moment, but it's still a shitty movie.
I am not going to respond. I disagree. But that's a whole episode in of itself. So
maybe one day, maybe we'll watch the Ultimate Edition and we'll give our review of that.
Yeah, maybe, but I disagree. I think there's plenty of, honestly, there's plenty of people online that would probably, defend my position. Yeah. And I can appreciate that what you're saying.
Yeah, I've made fun of that moment a lot, but
I do not want to waste any more breath on this movie that I literally walked out of the theater thinking was a waste of my money. So let's move on to things we can actually give a shit about.
Okay.
So this is where we will probably diverge.
I think so. Yeah.
And so let's, Ryan, how about you start? What is your number 9?
My number 9, and this I feel like might be controversial putting so low, but it's Batman Forever. I've seen it one time. I just don't have a lot of good things to say about it. I don't really care for, like, I like Jim Carrey, but like him as the Riddler is just kind of like too much. Tommy Lee Jones is trying to match his energy and it really doesn't work for me. And Val Kilmer is just kind of like so bland, and I don't like, as a Batman he's fine, but like as a Bruce Wayne, like I don't care. Like I just spent a lot of that movie not really caring about what was going on. And it introduces Robin, which I like Robin, but I don't like this Robin.
I can understand your criticisms. So again, there's not going to be a lot where I necessarily disagree, because there's so much, like, I think many of the opinions held of different Batman movies are, commonly held. So
like of the 2 Joel Schumacher Batman movies, the reason I think this one is worse is because the other one at least feels like it's having fun. This movie is a movie that has Kiss from a Rose by Seal as one of its like soundtrack things. Like this movie feels like it's trying to be serious and trying to be adult. Batman and Robin does not feel like that. The entire time it feels like it's this camp movie for children. This movie's trying to have it both ways. Yeah. And I think it fails in both. For me personally.
I can understand that. But I'll give you my number 9.
Yeah.
And my reasoning, which also might be like controversial or something. It's going to be Batman Returns, right? So Batman with Catwoman and Penguin, with Michael Keaton, right? I think Michael Keaton's a good Batman. And this is, again, very subjective. I don't, and I almost mentioned this as well in our The Batman thing. I don't care for this Catwoman, and I don't care for the Penguin in these movies. And it's some aesthetic, right? Tim Burton directed this. And the way that things look and stuff, just not. I watched it as a kid, and that's another caveat, is that some of these movies we have not watched since we were kids and or teenagers.
The first time I saw a part of Batman Returns was as a kid, but I did not like really watch the movie as a whole. I'm going to try and caveat when I watch these movies. Batman Forever, I watched like as a teenager.
Yeah, Batman Forever, I think I watched it as maybe like a preteen, and haven't watched the whole thing again.
Yeah, you can discuss it when you bring Batman Forever up later.
But... Yeah. Sorry. I meant Batman Returns.
Okay. Batman Returns.
Again, so many damn names. Yeah. Batman Returns. I watched as like a preteen. And so that's like, I don't, maybe it's a much better movie than I think and stuff. But like what I remember, how it made me feel was like, I was like, I just didn't really like it. There's this thing about it, like that didn't make me like, that didn't connect. It didn't like sink into my heart as being a Batman movie I ever wanted to even watch again. And so that's why I get to my number 9 spot.
All right. Do you want to give your number 8?
I will get my number 8. Sort of coming fresh right off of yours, Batman Forever.
Okay. Cool.
And why does this beat out the other one? Well, because I liked Jim Carrey and Tommy Lee Jones villains better than I liked
Michelle Pfeiffer and Danny DeVito.
Yeah, but you're valid in everything you say. Is that in some ways, like, it comes in a little serious and a little campy, but like that doesn't jive super well. I also watched this movie. Probably the last time I watched it was when I was more of a teenager, a little bit more recent. So again, there can be some recency bias here, but that slightly more evolved understanding made me maybe understand like the kind of ridiculousness of Jim Carrey, but I almost liked it more. You know, like those campy elements and just them doing their characters was likable. Val Kilmer's Batman, not that likable. You know, like he's kind of just whatever.
I've seen Val Kilmer be really good in a movie.
Yeah.
But not this one for me.
So that's my number 8 spot. How about you?
My number 8, and this is the big controversy, I think, on my list. Especially considering what's above it. My number 8 is Batman Begins.
Wow. Very interesting.
Yeah. So I mentioned this in my The Batman review. I watched The Batman Begins after The Dark Knight. And so I had my opinions and thoughts about The Dark Knight as a movie, and then I went into The Batman Begins trying to have it live up to The Dark Knight, and I think that's probably why it fell so short for me in watching it. The training with Ra's al Ghul in like Eastern Asia, was like weird. And like it takes so much time. It does the Christopher Nolan thing of like jumping around like back and forth in time, which he does not do in The Dark Knight. And I think that's good because I don't like it in Batman Begins. What's her name? Katie Holmes as Rachel. I don't like as much as Maggie Gyllenhaal. Scarecrow, I don't think is that good of a villain. Ra's al Ghul, I don't think is that good of a villain. And Ra's al Ghul's like their plan to destroy Gotham because it's so corrupt that it needs to be destroyed, but also revealing that they're the reason that it's as corrupt as it is. Like they did nothing to try and make it better. They're just like, oh, it's too corrupt. We got to destroy it all. And like, why does this like League of Shadows have such a like issue with this random city in America? Like, it's not like it's like the peak capital. Like they say, like they destroy Rome, but like, and now they're going to destroy this random city, Gotham in America. Like not like, and we don't know the world in which a Gotham exists, but yeah, it's just so it was just boring and I didn't like it.
I can actually understand all those criticisms very well. So nothing about what you're saying is wrong. And I even tend to agree in some ways. But I will say that my Batman Begins does not rank where yours does.
Yeah, I mean, obviously. So moving on to number 7. This is a movie a lot of people would have put lower. My number 7 is Batman and Robin.
Okay.
Which, heavy caveat, the last time I watched this movie was when I was a child, like all the way through. And I've seen clips of it since then. And I understand why people have issues with it, the bat nipples and the bat credit card and all that stuff. But watching it as a child, this was my first Batman movie. It's just a blast. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze is just like, he really hams it up, and he's like funny, and like when he's watching freaking the Snow Miser song like randomly in the movie, like I'm like, I watched that movie. It just kind of makes me happy. Uma Thurman, I think, is like does a good job as Poison Ivy.
I was sorry, I don't want to cut you off. I was reading this thing that said in Batman and Robin, Alicia Silverstone.
She is Batwoman.
She's Batwoman. Okay.
Or Batgirl.
This article I read totally got it wrong and said Poison Ivy as Alicia Silverstone. And I was like,
no,
who?
yeah.
Like, wait, that's not who that is.
Yeah. Alicia Silverstone from Clueless. It plays Batgirl, which, okay, let's talk about the things that are bad with it. Batgirl's kind of shoot in. Robin, not good.
Robin, totally unlikable.
Yeah. Bane, not the character Bane as he is supposed to be. This is just like some dumb like luchador that helps out Poison Ivy.
Yeah, who is apparently like a literal nothing without Venom, which I think in comics, like he's not like a scrawny nobody, like a weirdo ugly dude.
Yeah, this is just like some like loser, nobody. But look, this is just this interpretation. But yeah, it's just kind of like a fun movie. I think George Clooney's not bad as the Batman. He just put in like a campy movie, and I think he's probably kind of meant to be in a campy movie. I can't really imagine George Clooney as a serious Batman. Like, put George Clooney in Batman Begins, that'd be weird. But give him a Bat credit card, that feels right.
I don't know if I agree. I think George Clooney has a Bruce Wayne down to the T.
Yeah.
But I think as a Batman, he lacks quiet intensity.
That's fair. You know what? That is valid.
I think George Clooney's a great Bruce Wayne.
Yeah, he's like an Adam West Batman and a solid Bruce Wayne.
I don't know if I'd throw him all the way to Adam West Batman. Adam West Batman is a literal joke. So I don't know if I do that. He does bring a little bit of dignity to Batman, even if there's not,
it's not the quiet dignity.
Yes. So.
There's a lot of jokes. He makes a lot of like one-liners, but yeah, I think it's a fun movie. I get that it's probably a bad movie, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Again, I'm not going to disagree with you there.
I have fond memories of it. Obviously it's higher on your list.
Indeed. So, number 7, Lego Batman. And this is the animated one on our top 10 list. Why don't we include other? We both
have the Lego,
why don't we include other animated ones? Because there's a whole bunch of them, and this would be a way bigger list.
And I've seen none of them.
I've seen none of them as well.
I wanted to watch Mask of the Phantasm because I've heard it's quite good. If you think I should, comment below and say watch Mask of the Phantasm. If you want us to talk about that movie, let us know.
Sure, yeah. But yeah, Lego Batman. It's actually not a bad movie. However, it's not what I look for in Batman movies. I look for movies that are like, at least, in a sense, serious, like real, actual villains and things happening. This is like a comedy, but Lego Batman, for what it is a good, entertaining movie. It's just like, I'm never going to rank it too high on a Batman list because it's not like, it's not a Batman movie, but it's not like a Batman movie that I would.
It's not what you're looking for.
It's not what I'm looking for.
The same way you don't like the Adam West kind of campiness.
Yeah.
The Lego Batman movie actually has a lot of like aspects, I imagine, of the Adam West. Like, it is like very campy and very self-aware, self-referential, like the Lego movie. But yeah, so I can understand.
But it's such a solid movie in and of itself that it still beats out like the movies below it that are just like not very good, or that I like really don't like in certain ways. Yeah,
like for me, the first 3 movies I named I don't like. Batman and Robin was the first movie that I named that I liked.
Yeah. And I did like the Lego Batman movie.
Yeah.
So, all right,
I think you'll give your next one.
Okay. Yeah, so my number 6, again, coming right after yours, Batman and Robin. Same things that Ryan said here. While we can talk about all the criticisms of the movie, I also watched this movie. This might, I don't know if it's actually the first Batman that I saw, but it's the one that I can remember earliest in my memory and I saw multiple times. And again,
I believe we owned this movie, which is why we saw it like on repeat.
Yeah, and so there's some nostalgia bias here. And like, hey, when you're a kid, like all that stuff seems cool. Like I'm not sitting here overthinking the plot and everything. Like, I'm like, wow, Bat skates, Mr. Freeze, like this is all so cool. Like everything seemed great, and it's still holds a place in my heart for that reason. But I do look back on it now and think, oh yeah, some of that's kind of like a little cringy almost.
Yeah,
and I recognize that, but it doesn't stop being Batman that I still enjoy more than those other ones.
Yeah, valid.
So there's that. Your number 6.
My number 6 is The Dark Knight Rises. So again, having to live up to The Dark Knight for me is hard. But this movie lived up to it better than Batman Begins did because it's actually following up on it. And Anne Hathaway as Catwoman is kind of just there. Tom Hardy as Bane, I think is quite good. I really like Tom Hardy in this movie. I really like Bane as the character, done much better than in the Batman and Robin movie. Talia al Ghul, I think, was a good reveal. I kind of saw it coming, but it still sort of took me by surprise. My biggest flaw with the movie was that Batman just kind of goes away for like a half hour. Like he's just not around for like a while like this movie is kind of like overly ambitious in a lot of ways, but it's still like was like entertaining and like a competent movie for me for enough of it that like I enjoyed watching it. And I went and saw the midnight premiere of it, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm ready for this follow up. And it did not live up to my expectations, but I still liked it and I still enjoyed it. And I still enjoy like the sort of Bane references, like, oh, hello. Like it's just a funny voice to do. And I never thought he was that too hard to understand when I was watching it either. So I don't really get those criticisms.
I might take a moment to mention how you say he's kind of gone for a little while in the movie. I think it's an interesting choice that's maybe purposeful in the sense that Batman is he's so a part of Gotham that and we get the reference that he's been there like being that protector for so long that like him being removed, the city basically goes to shit.
Yeah.
And it's that like that Gotham needs Batman to a degree.
But
I think they're trying to like portray that a little bit.
But the movie begins with him having taken a hiatus as Batman. So I don't know how much I necessarily believe with that.
Has he taken a hiatus at the beginning of the movie?
Yeah, because he's just sort of like been in isolation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's. Is it as good as The Dark Knight? No. Is it still a good movie? Yeah. Also, Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Robin, kind of.
Yeah. Just Joseph Gordon-Levitt being okay as a character in the movie. I mean, like the fact that he's Robin is basically just a tease at the end. Like it didn't really matter.
And like we knew that it wasn't going to be its own movie, so I don't even know why they put it in there. It was just an Easter egg. Like I almost feel like it was teasing the audience, like, haha, here's Robin. You'll never see him.
I mean, I like to think it's sort of a conclusive way, like. What does Gotham City have after? Oh, we get a Robin. Like he like, hey, Robin will exist and keep being in, technically he wouldn't even necessarily be Robin. It'd probably be Nightwing. Like
because he's
Robin without Batman is Nightwing. Adult Robin.
And why would he want to go around advertising his actual name? Because this Robin is named Robin, unlike every other Robin.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah. Wait, so was that your 5 spot?
I think so. Let me see.
I said my 6 spot, so we must be on.
That was my number 6. Yeah. So I'll go into number 5. So this is the last of the movies that I just kind of like. This movie actually sort of borders between good and great to me. I want to say that it's a great movie, but like there's just there's just not a lot in the movie that stands out and like comes to my memory. And I watched this movie like I think about a year ago. And so it really should be more present in my mind, but there's a lot that just sort of like goes away from my head. And it is Batman, Michael Keaton's first movie. And yeah, there's plenty to say that's good about it. It's plenty of people's favorite Batman movie. And for a lot of people, it was people's first Batman movie. And Jack Nicholson does a great job. Michael Keaton is a great Batman. I just a lot of good stuff to say about it, but I can't remember enough details about it to really hit on why I like it. Like I know the scene where he's like, "Oh, you want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts." That's cool. I think Michael Keaton's kind of the standout of the movie more than Jack Nicholson for me. And maybe that's a problem. Like this Batman is more interesting than this Joker. And I think maybe that's my biggest flaw with the movie.
All valid.
Yeah. So your number 5?
My number 5 is Batman Begins. All your criticisms notwithstanding, right? This movie came out when I was at a formative age where I was really at a point where I could understand movies better. And also giving us I mean, all the Batmans we had before, I mean, we're coming right off of us very keenly being aware of Batman and Robin, having Batman, what was that?
Returns and Forever.
Forever being the most recent one.
Batman and Robin was the most recent.
Yeah, the ones that played on TV probably more often, right? Yeah. So the ones that we see, the fact that even Batman and Batman Returns being things that I would see on occasion, right? They don't come up that often. And Tim Burton's style, like in some ways, it's not like campy, but it is like a little
It's got this gothic style that still like has this level of separation.
exactly.
It's still this sort of formalist interpretation of a Batman world. Like Gotham is a city, but it still like looks like a movie set city, kind of.
And yeah, it just seems unrealistic. It puts it in a sort of unrealism that's not totally appealing. Or not, it's not that it's not totally appealing, but it separates itself. It feels very comic book movie-y, and that's what a lot of things were at the time. But Batman Begins was a grounded, realistic, like, this is a Batman that can exist, and we see how, like, the things that he does aren't, like, so outside of this is where we really have Batman grounded as, like, this could be you if you were a billionaire. If you're a millionaire, you could have enough money to buy that suit and maybe do all these things.
As much as I want to criticize, as much as I did criticize Batman Begins, the thing that you cannot deny about it is that it sort of set a precedent for superhero movies. Like, I recently watched a review of Batman Begins where basically sort of like keys in that like the sort of overarching plot structure of Batman Begins is kind of echoed in Iron Man. Like the way that it begins, like those two movies are more similar than they may appear at first glance. And considering Iron Man came out the same year as Dark Knight, they were being developed like in conjunction. So Iron Man is kind of like the first non-Batman movie released in the wake of Batman Begins, following the sort of architecture that Batman Begins set up. Mm-hmm. And Iron Man's a lot more fun, but it still sort of is just borrowing those bones that Batman Begins has of a good movie.
Yeah. I mean, and the thing is, Batman Begins is literally Batman Beginning. It's the first of a trilogy. And, you know, the first of books have so much work to do by setting up things. I mean, we don't get to see Batman until literally halfway through the movie. And he's not even like Batman that's very accomplished. He's like just figuring it out Batman, you know, still not, you know, totally successful Batman. And that's what, like, maybe in some ways takes away from the movie being more whole, is that we have to spend so much time building him. But it was such a interesting departure from everything that I had understood Batman to be, or what like Batman movies were up to that point. And that's why it was very significant. And so like it stands out amongst all these other ones that I mentioned beforehand.
Yeah.
So that's why it takes my 5 spot.
All right.
So again, coming right off of, you know, in some ways we're very close with something flipped around, but coming right off of yours, my number 4 spot is Batman as well. For this is probably the movie I've seen the least of any of the movies that we mentioned at all. I've seen it probably 2 times, I think, in my entire life. But I remember this being, before Batman Begins existed, this was the Batman that I thought was the most grounded, serious, real Batman that was just good, like a good Batman to watch. And that's what I really remember about it. Again, the last time I saw Batman was probably before I was 11 years old. So how much can I even remember of it? Not a lot, but like the impression it gave me was that this was a really cool Batman. It wasn't so like weird and strange, but it also wasn't like so Tim Burton-y kind of like out there aesthetic that it turned
really
me off.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's good. And the fact, and hearing you validate almost, again, with me just giving my old impression as a kid, that you validate that many other people consider this a good one is good to hear. That it's not like I came upon this understanding just out of like child naivete.
Honestly, I think that it would be higher on my list if I watched it before having watched so many other of these Batman movies. So what was the fresh, newest, first interpretation of Batman other than Adam West put on the big screen? It was sort of a big deal. Or it wasn't even sort of. It was a big deal. It was the highest grossing movie that year. It sort of like set the precedent for a lot of things. It was a good movie. It kind of gave Tim Burton his career.
Yeah,
in a lot of ways, more than Pee-wee's Big Adventure before it. But yeah, so Batman's a good movie.
Is Batman the one that set his career off?
It was Pee-wee's Big Adventure was like his sort of debut, and then he did Batman, and it was like this, like, well,
I can't remember. I think I saw a thing one time that was kind of mentioning that, There was a kickstart to Tim Burton's career overall, but I don't know that it was meant Batman.
I may have gotten it confused.
I think it might have been Edward Scissorhands.
No,
that was his kickoff.
I may have gotten it confused, but I wanted to say that he did Batman before Beetlejuice, but I could be backwards.
Oh, I think it is Beetlejuice now.
Okay.
I think Beetlejuice is the kickoff.
Yeah. I know, because I get them confused because the Michael Keaton of it all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but yeah, that is why, I mean, Batman, even though I don't remember it very well, and I probably should go watch it again, it still stood out and does stand above a lot of these other movies. So,
all right. So my number 4, echoing a movie that you put much lower on your list, is Batman Returns, and is my preferred of the 2 Tim Burton movies. First off, I like Tim Burton. I like his aesthetic. This movie's kind of dripping with it. It's a Christmas movie. I watched it, I believe, last Christmas or maybe the Christmas before, as like the first time I watched it since I was a kid, like seeing the clip, like parts of the movie. And Michelle Pfeiffer is great as Catwoman. Danny DeVito makes choices as the Penguin. It's really weird, but like I appreciate that he kind of just goes for it. Christopher Walken does a good job as the sort of like mob boss character, and I like Michael Keaton in this movie is less of the star of the show, like because there's so many other characters going on in this one. But I think his relationship to Michelle Pfeiffer's Selena Kyle is more nuanced and has more life to it than his relationship with the woman from the first Batman movie. And I appreciate that. And yeah, aesthetically, I like it more as a movie. The first Batman movie just kind of feels like it's a little too, like, it's not Tim Burton-y enough. And this movie has a lot more of that, like, dark aesthetic to it that I appreciate. And it's a lot more gothic in all of its nature. I understand not being into it, but because you said you watched it a while ago, I kind of do recommend you give it a rewatch. If you're going to watch the other Michael Keaton, go ahead and give them both a rewatch.
I think my opinion might change if I actually rewatch them both more recently. Because again, I am basing it off of having watched it when I was, a young kid. So, and I give room for that. Like it's very possible it can improve.
So, I believe we're entering our top 3, and we're both going to have 2 movies the same in our top 3. With one divergence. My divergence from you at number 3, up until recently, was my second favorite Batman movie, the Lego Batman movie.
Well, I'll just say right now, your number 3 confirms that our 1 and 2 are the same. So
okay, that's kind of what I thought.
We can easily talk about them.
we can talk about them at the same time, so that's good to know. But so me talking about the Lego Batman movie, I understand why you do not go for it as much, because it is a very campy, cartoony, silly, funny take on Batman. But Will Arnett as Batman kind of blows it out of the park. He is as Batman as you can get without being like a live action person to me. Like his voice as Batman, and it's very comedic, but like it still kind of takes him as a character seriously. Like it explores his like insecurities and his like issues with like being alone in a way that the other Batman movies kind of like hint at and address, like that he's always alone, but they never like try to really resolve it, because the point of the movie is always more about him beating the bad guy. In this movie, the resolution to his character and his plot arc is him kind of being a more full-fledged adult person and like accepting a relationship with like his family, like with Alfred and with Robin, who I think Michael Cera as Robin is like, does a great job as that character as well. I just have a lot of good stuff to say. Zach Galifianakis as the Joker in it also like does a good job of like it's not like a serious Joker that we kind of want out of the Joker, but like he does a good job with it.
It is the Joker though. So,
yeah.
I mean,
he's this fun thing. And like, he brings this empathy to the Joker that like kind of no other Joker has, or probably other than like Joaquin Phoenix Joker.
Yeah.
But like it's a more silly empathy. It's just a fun movie. And up until my number 2 came out, it was my second favorite Batman movie.
Yeah. And I understand like why you like it. It's just like when I put a Batman, like I said, when I put a Batman ranking list, I'm not going to put Lego Batman as one of the better ones. I feel like in some ways it does injustice to some of them that are very good, but I do respect why yours is high. This is a subjective list.
Yeah. So this and Batman Returns are like great movies to me. And the next movie is going to be a great movie. And then my number ones, it's sort of, we'll get into that. What's your number 3?
Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah. I was like what have you not said yet?
And so this kind of goes with Batman Begins, all the criticisms that you said, like it was pretty good, but it wasn't like Batman-y enough, right? And I even felt that when I watched it, but I did feel like I was like, wow, this is like kind of interesting. And I didn't know. I almost thought, I remember thinking about Batman Begins, man, I just wish this could have been more Batman-y or something. Like this was kind of like not realizing or understanding that it was supposed to be part of a trilogy.
Yeah. It takes a while for him to become Batman.
Yeah. And The Dark Knight Rises, though, is and we'll get into it, how, so amazing The Dark Knight is. This is a reasonable, pretty good end to that story. I mean, it's for it being the end of that amazing, like what is a trilogy is amazing, and what holds the best Batman movie. Again, spoiler for spoiler for the end of our list, guys. What holds the best Batman movie ever?
Some people might have thought that number 2 was number 1.
Yeah, maybe they could have, but I mean, if you thought that, then you just haven't seen The Dark Knight or something.
Yeah.
But the ending of that trilogy, I mean, they do everything they can to end such a fantastic sort of like character. I think in some ways the Dark Knight Rises suffers from being the last of those 3 movies, right? Yeah. Batman Begins gets away with being this was the beginning, so it's okay that it wasn't quite enough. It's part of this trilogy. It's still okay as a movie on its own, not great, but we can give it a little bit of a nod for not having everything we wanted because we're setting up for what The Dark Knight is. And The Dark Knight Rises, maybe it doesn't land an ending as well, but again, you're coming off of The Dark Knight.
Yeah. It's hard to live up to that, and it does a pretty decent job. Again, I will say Catwoman, don't like her that much. Not that great of a Catwoman. She's barely in that movie.
Yeah,
I think you forgot about her.
I did. I literally forgot about her. So, I mean, but like the Bane, awesome. Reveal of Talia al Ghul, I think that was cool. Like we tie back to our first Batman movie. And even though like the leaving, I think like we still have some good thematics and what's going on and bringing the story of this Gotham to its end and how Batman gets his end here. So I think everything, a Dark Knight, because it just ends that really great series for me, it does still stand up there. And because it's just one of those newer movies, like maybe it's recency bias, maybe it's just that it was directed and more new and its aesthetic is still realistic. I'm biased against that aesthetic, this more realistic aesthetic being superior to me, but that's why it makes it up in my 3 spot.
So let's talk about number 2.
Honestly, it's the Batman. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't actually want to talk about it here, guys, because we did a whole podcast on it. So
if you have not listened to that podcast prior to this, please do.
Yeah. In summary, just give my really quick one. The new Batman not only has the realism that I'm attracted to, but like this gritty noir aesthetic that I love. It's a good story, a really compelling acting, and it's just it's really seen itself easily. Like when I walked out of that movie theater, I was like, this is one of the best Batmans I've ever seen.
I think there's an argument to be made, because this is not having to do with the movie. I think there's an argument to be made, and I did not say this in the review, that Robert Pattinson as Batman is maybe the best Batman.
Potentially.
He's not the best Bruce Wayne.
He is not. He is really not the best.
But his Batman is very good.
Yeah.
And so
George Clooney's Bruce Wayne, excellent. Christian Bale's Bruce Wayne, excellent.
Yeah.
And just to say, like, if we, take a moment to talk about Bruce Wayne's, those are some notable ones, right?
Michael Keaton as Bruce Wayne, like he was like a surprising cast for a lot of people, but I think he does a good job.
Yeah, decent, pretty good job there. Val Kilmer, not very likable as both Batman. Hey man, don't want to.
That's me.
Yeah, don't want to be mean to Val Kilmer, but yeah, not great at either role. But this is truly one of the best Batmans, like really to stack up against Christian Bale's Batman.
Which
Which I
let's not
mean,
beat around the bush.
yeah, number one, The Dark Knight. There is literally no argument here. I actually will not suffer any arguments about this not being the best Batman movie ever made.
I even had said this to my brother prior to our recording of this, that he did let slip that he was going to have the same number one as me, because it was never going to be a surprise for me. The Dark Knight is my all-time favorite movie. And it has been pretty much since I saw it in theater. It was the first movie I ever went back to the theater to watch 3 times. And this was at a point in time when I did not have my own spending money. I had to ask, like, can I want to go see that again? Or like, it was offered to me. I'm like, yes, I want to go watch that movie again. When you said The Batman Begins was like, came out at the formative age where you were beginning to understand movies, that's what The Dark Knight was for me, because like it came out like 2 years later or 3 years later, maybe, and I'm about 2 years younger than you. So The Dark Knight just like has this imprint on me as a movie, and God, what a great movie. And I appreciate you saying that you do not suffer the argument that it is the best Batman movie, because I don't really like to hear people try and argue that it's not, because it just does not make sense to me. I've seen these other movies.
And not only that, like I've watched more than one like breakdown of why this is a good movie. And like that's the biggest thing is that like all the other Batman movies are like good, but like, they're good from all that they are. Dark Knight is like it's if it wasn't a superhero movie, it really probably could have won awards for being such a well done story. Like its theme is so perfectly done. Like it's like a case study for film, like makers and things.
Like the Academy Awards did not nominate it Best Picture, but like they had to nominate Heath Ledger's performance.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think like as much as that is sort of the touched upon thing, like Heath Ledger kind of like elevates this movie. That's not to say that Christopher Nolan, like as a director, like this is kind of like his crowning achievement. I'm sure some people probably prefer Inception as his like best movie, or maybe some other movies. And he has plenty of great work, but this is, for me, this is just like the sort of like the crown jewel of everything that he has made.
Yeah, perfect writing. Just like the writing's so good, the putting the story together, the directing, so much about the movie is just so well done.
I talked about how Katie Holmes I didn't think was that good of a Rachel, and I think Maggie Gyllenhaal like for what is like kind of like this minor character, like it just does a good job. Christian Bale is, I think, probably my favorite Batman, and
the thing
definitely
is
my favorite Bruce Wayne.
Christian Bale, right? As we've kind of made comments, right? Like I think Robert Pattinson's one of the best Batmans that's ever been portrayed, right? I think that George Clooney, great Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
I think Val Kilmer didn't do great at either. I think Michael Keaton did pretty good at both. I think Christian Bale is the best person to portray both roles.
Yeah.
Like he was able to have the kind of the almost it's not comical, but like it's meme worthy. Where is she?
Yeah, the voice is silly. And I remember hearing it for the first time because I had not seen Batman Begins before. I was like, oh, that's his voice. And I took a little minute to adjust, but like he's putting on a different voice. Like he's trying to not be obviously Batman. And he does a good job at it. Like they feel like separate characters.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And like the fact is, I'm like, okay, putting on a different voice so that people recognize you less is actually intelligent. It's actually a smart thing to do. But yeah, he is the best to do both roles. Neither of his roles suffer. He plays a billionaire playboy and the quiet, dark intensity of a Batman both well. And for that, he is the best Batman, Bruce Wayne, that's ever been on,
The Batman Begins and The Dark Knight Rises, and you touched upon this when you were talking about The Dark Knight Rises, like they work when you look at it as a trilogy. Batman Begins works because it's setting up 2 other movies. Dark Knight Rises works because there were 2 movies laying groundwork before it. This movie, removing those 2 other movies, works on its own. It's the only one in the trilogy that works on its own, and it's at a level so higher above the other 2 movies that for me that like it's kind of like ridiculous.
Yeah. I mean, not enough good can be said. However, this movie's been out so long, you can literally find at least a dozen different YouTube film breakdowns of this movie and all the different reasons that it's amazing and all the different themes and everything it explores and
You could probably even find a lot of hot takes of people saying why this movie's not as good as people say it is. And I've heard people try to give the hot take like that there are things about, like I've heard people compare it to the Michael Keaton Batman and like find like reasons to say that the Michael Keaton Batman is better. And maybe I'm the one with the nostalgia bias of this being my formative Batman movie, or they're the ones with the nostalgia bias of that the Michael Keaton being their formative, and so they have that bias. But like you said, I don't entertain an argument that this isn't the best Batman movie. The only argument I entertain is it the best superhero movie, which I still think it is, but I'm at least willing to have that conversation.
Yeah, I see. I don't know. I don't have I would not make that argument, but I will say this is the best Batman movie. There really aren't. Hey, are there dozens of video essays about how good of a movie and that the Batman movie is? There aren't. There's probably some, but like there just aren't that many because there's not that much to say about movie making, the movie making of it.
Yeah.
Again, filmmaking as a film, like take out that it's about a superhero. This is a well done movie. I don't even want to say any more about it. Like it's freaking obvious.
If you haven't seen The Dark Knight, what's wrong? Like, why are you watching this list? Like, imagine a person who's seen every Batman.
I don't even think we got into any spoilers really about most of the movies and stuff. But so that's the list. I mean, there it is. The Dark Knight's the best fucking Batman movie that's ever been made. The new Batman movie is so good that it literally
it almost rivals it, which is a lot to say.
I don't know about rival, but it's
the closest any other Batman movie has come to it.
The new Batman movie is, I will say one thing for it, in a negative aspect, it's maybe not going to appeal to everybody the same way. I think The Dark Knight is universally appealing. The new Dark Knight is a little more brutal, has a different kind of aesthetic and stuff. And if you like Tim Burton's aesthetic, you probably like the Batman a lot more.
But like, remove any of the comedy from the Tim Burton. Like it's very dark. It's very dour. Yeah. And again, please listen to our review on it. But like it's a good movie. The Dark Knight is kind of incomparable to me.
Truly. I mean, and that's not like I watched it at some age. I watched it when I was, obviously a little older than Ryan here. So I was even more in a sense of understanding movies well, and just remember coming out of the movie and be like, what the fuck was that? Like,
again, watched it 3 times, and then like it's one of those movies like where I was at an age, it was already my favorite movie, but it's a movie that I got to rewatch like on home, like in recordings and like on HBO enough times that like I haven't even watched that movie in like quite a few years, if I'm being honest, like because I just don't have a habit of rewatching movies. But I know if I watched it again, I'm just gonna be like enthralled with it because it's just God, I love it. I'm repeating myself. So I hope you enjoyed our list. What's your favorite Batman movie? Let us know, respond, or if it's not The Dark Knight, especially we'd like to hear, because we did kind of rebuff the idea of it not being your favorite Batman movie. But
this is a subjective list. I think objectively, The Dark Knight is the best Batman movie.
It doesn't have to be your favorite.
Yeah, but subjectively, hey, everybody's welcome to have a different opinion.
I'd love to hear people's reasoning for why another Batman movie is their favorite. Maybe it's a nostalgia thing, but like if you have reasons to rebuff, like I had hot takes. I put Batman Begins really low on my list, and people love that movie. I've heard people argue that it's better than The Dark Knight, so maybe I'm biased there. But yeah, so, and again, if you haven't listened to our review of the Batman, please do. We're going to try, I'm going to try and have these both up at the same time. So you can sort of pick and choose which you watch first, but the intention was to watch the Batman review, then come to this. Yeah. But, I think that's all we have to say.
It indeed is. So until next time, folks, this has been Robert
and Ryan.
Have a good one.
I'm Batman.